Hello, this is Jack Jackson. Let's take a look at a few things we can do in GeoGebra. So just opening up GeoGebra Classic, it looks like this. I'm going to just choose the geometry version right now, so that's going to close everything down except for a basic geometry window. But I do want you to know one of the things about GeoGebra is there is a Cartesian coordinate system in the background, and we can show that. We can show a grid, a rectangular grid, a polar grid, or an isometric grid. Or not show the grid, and we can show the axes or not. But there is an analytic component to this, GeoGebra, geometry, and algebra together. So there's that if we want to do that. But I want to show you something, a couple little things. One of the things I want to show you is making some slider input box combinations. So here is a slider. I can make a number slider or an integer slider. Let's say if I want to make a distance slider. Distances are positive, so I can go say 0 to, let's say 0 to 50. And I can put the increment here. Say I want it to go up in 0.01, for example, increments, and this makes a slider. Okay, that's good enough. One thing that's nice about a slider is you can very easily control somewhat smoothly objects in the sketch based on this slider. But what's also kind of neat is we can also combine this with an input box. So let me show you how that works. So I'm going to go to input box here. I'm going to put that underneath my slider here. And I'm going to go ahead and write A equals, and I'm going to link it to object A, which is done by that slider. Now I'm going to do a couple of cosmetic things now. I'm going to right click on this and go to settings. That box is too long for just a number, or it's kind of wasted space. So I'm going to go to style, and I'm going to change the length of that. Let's say if I go to maybe a length of 6, and I'm going to align that in the center. I have three options there. And now I have this. I could make that slider also longer or shorter by going to settings and then go to a slider. Here I can again set minimum, max, and so forth. And I can make a vertical slider going that way. I'd rather have a horizontal one here. And can change a few different things. One thing I want to do is change the width here. Say if I want to make it, maybe half as long, I could put that to be 100. Okay, and if I line this up, so let's say if I want to put this over here at the edge of the screen like this, I have this. And what's kind of cool about this is this slider input box combination has the ability to, one controls the other. So for example here, if I move the slider, it changes the value of the box, but I can also type in the box a number and go directly to it. So like if I want to go directly to a number and I'm having a hard time getting that slider to land exactly where I want it to be, I can type in a specific number there and go directly to it, and that has a nice advantage for me. But there's also an advantage to the slider. Now there's really no reason to display both of these numbers, so now I'm going to go up here and not show the label. And so now I have a slider. The value shows up in the box, and then I can type the number directly in the box, or I can move the slider. And so I like that combination. I think that's very powerful. It sort of gives you the best of both worlds, the ability to type in a specific number or the ability to move it smoothly with the slider. Now suppose I want to make a, let's suppose I want a specific, let's say we make an angle here. Okay, and let's suppose I want to go out a specific distance along this one side. Well, one way I could do that is to do a circle by center and radius. So I could select the center here and say I want the radius controlled by that slider. I could type in, say, A, and that's going to make a circle that's going to have a radius controlled by that slider. See that? Okay, and the nice thing about the slider again is it makes it nice and smooth, but I can also jump directly to a specific number there. Let's see, if I want, like that. Now let's say I want this point to be a specific distance out here, then I can say find the intersection of that ray and that circle, and now my point D now is going to be at a distance of whatever A is. It's going to be that distance out along that ray. Now I can either I can control which way the ray goes by point B, all right, and then I can do this. I could have kind of done things in the opposite order too. I could have made the circle. Let me do that. I can make a point here, and then make the radius be A, again controlled by the slider, and then I can pick the point on the circle, and then make the first ray go along there. And so now point F again is going to be a point on this ray, but it actually controls where the ray is as well as seeing how far out it is, and how far out it is, of course, again is controlled by this same number here, which is going to control the size of both of these circles, and find those points there. Okay, let's say I want to go out a different distance here. I can maybe work that out with a different maybe a different slider. We can also do some things like this. For example, I can okay, let's say I have a array here, and let's say I want radians for my angles. Okay, so I will go here when I'm clicking. I clicked on the move tool and click out in the open. I can click on the menu here and go to settings, and from here I can change, like for example, maybe I want, you know, say 5 decimal places shown. I can control whether or not new objects and new points or different objects, what kind of things get labels automatically. Of course, you can always add or subtract labels later. Here, that's under there. Under here, this has something to do with the grid. I can set that up for the underlying Cartesian coordinate system, some different styles of labels, and some things that I can control. Lots of different things I can control. But one of them, if I click on this last thing that looks like a cubic graph with the minimum maximum identified, I can change my angles to, you know, degrees, minutes, seconds, radians, or degrees. So in my classes, I like to use radians. So we have radians there. If you like one of the other measurements, you know, of course, choose that for yourself. I can get to here. Let's just say we make another ray here and make an angle. So in geometry, an angle is the union of two rays with a common endpoint. So to be an angle, you actually have to have two rays, not two line segments or two lines, but two rays. And we can use this to measure that angle by selecting a point, the 3 points, and the middle one needs to be a vertex. So you click on one and then the vertex, point, vertex, and point. Notice it's measured in radians at the moment. But notice that it gets an angles can be measured larger than pi radians, larger than 180 degrees, pi radians. That's not the way we want it for, you know, physical angle measurements. We might have rotations measured that way. But most of the time, we're not going to want an angle like this. So I can right click on that, go to settings, and then go to angle between, and say go between 0 and 180 degrees, which is 0 in pi radians. And now when I move this around, once it gets too far, it's going to measure the other way around, which is how we measure angles in basic geometry. Okay, and so we have that. Okay, now you may have to do that angle between. You may have to do that on every angle that you make. that you want to, every angle that you measure, you may want to do that. But the radian setup only has to be once per file, once per sketch that we set up. Now, we can also, for example, we can make an angle slider and do this. I'm going to go from 0. Now, the default is to 2 pi radians. Well, let's say we just go to pi radians, and I can leave that something like that. It's going to start at 45 degrees, or pi over 4. And again, if I want to, go to style. If I want to, let's see, where are we? Slider. Say we can make this a little bit less long. I think I made that 100 a while ago. And that's going to move along. Again, let's make another input box to go with it. Now, this is interesting here. Okay, so what I'd like to do is make an input box here, but I'd like to label it alpha. And unfortunately, sometimes there's a icon down here for a keyboard that will come up, and especially if the algebra view is on, but right now I can't seem to get that to come up. But let me show you a workaround. I can go to text and go here, advanced, and go to put the letter alpha there, and I can copy that. Control C for copy. Now let's go back to here and go back to my input box. So my input box, I can paste. There's the alpha equals, and the link object will be alpha. And again, I can go to here and go to settings, style. Let's align center and make it say let's see, I did the other one. What was it, 6 long? So we'll use that again. Yeah, that works out pretty well. And now we have that. I want to make it just a little bit longer. And then we don't need to show it there. So now we have this. Now eventually you're probably going to want to make sure that these are locked and pinned to the screen. Locking the object keeps people from moving them around. If you and then pinning to the screen, right now I'm using the scroll wheel to zoom in and out, which you would see that I'm zooming in and out a little bit if I had, say, the grid going. And notice that thing is moving around with it. And I don't really want that to happen. I want it to stay basically where I put it. So I can lock the object and pin it to the screen. And do the same for these. Lock those and pin them to the screen. So now if I scroll to zoom in or move around to different parts of the plane, though that is not adjusting. Okay, so now I have an angle slider. Okay, so when I have an angle slider here, let's say I want to make an angle of that size, then of course I can start with the ray for my initial ray, and then I can go here by angle with the given size. You select a leg point, a vertex, and then the size. So here's a leg point, and there's the vertex, and the size I want it to be controlled by alpha. Again, I have that. I think I still have that in my clipboard, so if I can just do paste there, and there it gives me. Now it doesn't actually give me the angle. It measures that angle, but the angle is actually 2 rays. So if I really want an actual angle, I need to finish it up by making that ray, and that point's not really movable. I could actually hide it. This point is a control point. This point is the vertex. It's a control point. But then it's controlled by this slider where it goes from 0 to pi. From a 0 angle to straight angle to zero angle, acute angles, somewhere in here. If I could stop, oh, there it was for just a second. There it is, the right angle, obtuse angle, straight angle, controlled by the slider. Okay, so that's kind of useful to be able to make an angle that's controlled by a slider. Okay, and again, this point here is free to move this around. Suppose I want an isosceles triangle with this angle. Okay, I can make a circle by that center and say the radius is A, controlled by that slider and that input box, slider input box combination. I can now find the intersection points of that circle and that line, that ray, and that circle. And then the actual triangle is the 3 line segments. One thing I don't really like about GeoGebra is when you use the polygon tool, you not only get the polygon, you also get its interior constructed. But of course I could have used that tool by clicking on point, and then back to the original point. But what I might want to do now is take all this stuff here and maybe I could keep the original stuff, right click on it. Let's do this, all this while I'm holding control down, select multiple things. Oh, it's not doing it. Let's see if I can do this again. So this, right click, holding control down. Control. Okay, select all 3 of those. Still holding control down. Settings, style, and I could, for example, make these things very thin. And then maybe make the triangle itself a little thicker. I can do different colors. So let's make the triangle, let's make it blue and make it thicker. So there's a isosceles triangle. I could even go through here and right click and go to settings and style. I can, under decorations, I can put a mark on there on this one and this one. Put the same mark to indicate that they are congruent sides. Okay, and the angle is controlled by the slider. Or if I say, well, I'm not sure if I can get that exactly where I want it to be, what if I want to be, at pi over 3? Let's see. Keep the rad there and keep the radians there and just do pi over 3. And I think that will set it at pi over 3, which turns it in an equilateral triangle actually. Okay. Or I could say, for example, something different. I could make it pi over 6 radians. That's not pi over 6. Let's try that again. There we go. That's pi over 6 radians. And so there we get that. And again, I can that side length is controlled by the slider or by typing a specific number in. The angle is controlled by the angle slider, or again, I can type in a specific number. So there's a general isosceles triangle where the angle and the side lengths of the congruent sides are controlled by sliders. Everything else is then determined by those particular measurements. So that gives you an idea of a couple things that you can do with the combination of things here. Now, one of the things that I like to do sometimes is this. It's kind of a neat, more advanced little cosmetic thing. So a couple of things that you can do. If you want to keep this in the same thing, sometimes you don't want, things, to distract from what you've got going on over here. Sometimes I've gone up here and made a shape. Actually, what I use a lot of times is a text box. So I'll go over here and make a text box, and just, it really doesn't matter, just something like this to make a text box. Yeah, let's see, maybe I don't want this is big. And maybe not quite as many lines there. Okay, whatever, maybe that's not where I want it just yet, but I can go to settings, and I can make both the background say some color and the background as well. So you can't see what's in the text box. And there it is. And I can take this and I can say, go to settings, and I'll make that, let's see, advanced, and I can make that layer, say layer 1. Everything else is layer 0, so now it's above everything. Okay, and then I can select this and make it layer 2. It's advanced, layer 2, so it'll appear above the box now. This, settings, advanced, layer 2, and now I can fix this box. Now it's not pinned to the screen, so as I scroll in and out, it's going to change. But let's say I go to here, I don't need quite as many rows. I do need a little bit wider. And now I have a little box that I can put around that, and I can lock it and pin it to the screen. And now, since things are lower level, they kind of disappear behind that box. Now another thing you can do if you really want to get things out of the way is you can show another window, like another graphics window even. Okay, and I could take this one and say and now I could take these objects here, go to settings, I can go to advanced, I can decide to show them in graphics 2 instead of graphics 1, or both, and that can show up over there. So if I wanted to, I could put all this stuff. Let's see if I can do them all at once. I don't know if I can select them all at once here, but let's see how many I can get. Okay, so let's go here, settings. I can go to advanced, I can put it in graphics 2. I think I still had it in graphics 1 as well. And so anyway, what I can do with this is I can go to these settings here again and advanced, graphics 2 but not graphics 1, and just do the same thing for this. And actually I didn't mean to do that, but that's okay. We'll do this. So this one I mainly wanted to get. So here's another way. If you don't want it in the same window with stuff, you can basically have these kind of controls and things in their separate window altogether, and you can kind of change the relative size of these kind of at will. You can even go over here, I think, and that's the input box, and let's see here. Background color here. we can go here and give it a, if we want a certain background color, we can do that for, it's kind of, you want something kind of light if you're going to do it, but whatever. Let's say we do that. You can have that with a certain background color if you like, or you can do any window with a background color like that if you like to do it. So in any event, you can play around with these things here and have separate windows open. You could actually do a whole different constructions over here than you do over here, and that they actually can affect each other. So still, if I do this, even though it's over in this window, it's still controlling what's over in the graph over here. So anyway, there's a few little tips about how you could do a few things with GeoGebra. Hopefully you'll find some of those things helpful.